So I've been here for a little over a year, gradually working my way through a sequence of subjects, all connected with one another, because in theory, each subject I talk about leads on to the next one, which is a little step further up the ladder of a pathway towards more esoteric or more transcendental qualities of character or qualities of mind, which develop as we go along. The idea is that anywhere you jump in on the sequence, then if you can master that one, then it will lead you to the next one up. So it's almost like a spiritual staircase. And lately we've been working our way through a series of what you might call soft skills, if you were talking about them in the workplace these days. Over the last few weeks we have heard about respect, blessing number 22, which helped us overcome the tendency to find fault with others. Humility was blessing number 23, that helped us to avoid overestimating ourselves so that we don't look down on others. What I was talking to you about last week was on the subject of contentment, which equipped us to connect with the inner version of happiness rather than material sort of happiness. And as we move on to gratitude in the present blessing, it's as if we're tilling the ground to make the ground fertile, so that when we come to the final one, which is listening to teachings about spirituality, otherwise known as the Dharma, then those seeds will take root. They will fall on fertile ground. So gratitude is the last stage of the tilling of the soil before we come to that seeding of the Dharma. So there are many times that we've come across mentions of gratitude in the previous talks I've given. Right back in blessing number 3, we heard about it as gratitude towards monks and teachers and exemplary employers, for example. And even towards inanimate things that are helpful in our lives, educational objects, scriptures, pagodas, that sort of thing. Yeah? A little further on, we met up with gratitude towards parents and gratitude towards those who rule a country or an area we live in an exemplary way. And you might think that we are repeating ourselves, because a lot of the time when we hear about being grateful, it sounds a little bit like just being respectful. But generally, the difference we meet up with between respect, which we have already looked at, and the sense of gratitude is, firstly, gratitude is more about the particular ways in which we have been helped by a thing or a person, whereas respect is more generally to do with the qualities. But what we meet up with this time round in terms of gratitude, which maybe we haven't talked about before, is something known as latent benefit. Latent benefit, whereas some things merely by their presence may benefit us somehow, latently speaking. And this is covered in the sense of gratitude more than would be the case in terms of respect. But gratitude is seen as a quality which is particularly important. If you go back to the late 50s, there was a psychologist called Lawrence Kohlberg who proposed that people develop in maturity, ethically speaking, or in terms of their motivation to do good things in life as they go through life. Doesn't come automatically, but there's a general trend that generally people start out quite self-centered. As they go through life, that self-centeredness shifts slightly so that people do good things or do altruistic things in their lives, maybe they're more motivated, less by punishment or by rewards for those sort of things, which you would expect from maybe more from children. But maybe in teenage years, then altruistic behaviors might come more as a result of social approval. So there's a shift in the motivation, which Lawrence Kohlberg referred to as a sense of maturing. But as time goes on, as they move out of the teenage years, then it would be expected that people would be more altruistic, perhaps to conform with social order, with the laws of the land, or a sense of social contract, and then moving into things more like spiritual obligation, or perhaps conforming with things like universal rights. And finally, not everyone reaches this point in their life, but people might align themselves more with a sense of altruism, more as a sense of an abstract ideal. But what we learn from the research of Lawrence Kohlberg actually overlaps quite a lot with what we hear from Buddhist teachings as well, which are that firstly, people who are altruistic are quite hard to find. That is, like altruistic for the right reasons. And secondly, that without some gratitude on the receiving end of the altruism which those people express, then the rarity of altruism would certainly become more. So it's only because of gratitude people receive when they are being altruistic that they are motivated to do more of the same. Yeah? So firstly, altruism is hard to find, the people who do something first without expecting something in return. But if the gratitude is expressed, then that helps there to be more altruism around in society. So there is a sense of society, through its gratitude, helping more altruism to take place within that society. For that reason, it is said that gratitude is very important to make a society a nicer place to live in. So, if we are thinking about developing gratitude, and I will talk about this more on Thursday, the advantages of there being gratitude around in our character or more generally in society is that it can make us more resilient when we are coming across obstacles to doing the good things in our lives rather than the easy thing. Sometimes we're tempted to take shortcuts and not be a sort of exemplary person. But when we are sort of fighting in our own mind against that sort of backtracking, sometimes to have gratitude to fall back on is very helpful for us. Sometimes we can sort of keep on track merely by engaging with our own sense of patience. But if patience fails us, we can fall back maybe on respect for people who we feel we might disappoint if we were to take the easy way out. But sometimes even that sense of respect can fail us, in which case we can fall back on gratitude, because sometimes by calling to mind particular things that we've been helped with in the past can make it more easy to bring to mind in a way that we can ride out the storm that we are up against at any particular time. So you might say that gratitude helps us to have a sort of social traction. to be able to raise ourselves above the normal threshold that we normally have for motivation in doing the good things in life rather than the easy things. So within the Buddhist tradition, the word gratitude is translated as the word katanyu. And it would basically mean being able to recognize benefit brought to us by someone else or something else. So there's the sort of noticing when something has come to us as a result of someone else's goodwill. That would be called gratitude. But it also means recognizing latent benefits that may come to us. I mentioned that before. Maybe to give an example of that, sometimes having an insurance policy is like quite... it takes a weight off our mind even though we haven't made a claim on it yet. Yeah? Because latently it can help us out in case something goes wrong. Or having a hospital just around the corner is also good to know, even though we may not have used their services yet, but we know that we can go there if ever something bad happens to us. In the same way, there are some things within Buddhism, especially the category of being known as the Pacceka Buddha. Ever heard of that before? Pacceka Buddha? Or solitary Buddha? Well, we've heard of there being Buddhas who come like once in a blue moon, who are able to teach and spread teachings. But more often there's a sort of Buddha that arises in the world which are known as silent Buddhas or solitary Buddhas. They are called Pacceka Buddhas. They have all the qualities of a Buddha, of enlightenment, but they aren't able to teach. But sometimes simply having them around sort of bodes well for anyone in their midst. So latent benefit, also people can have gratitude for that as well, even though they're not receiving teachings directly from those personages. So there's more of this idea of latent benefit for gratitude than there is for respect. Sometimes I'm asked, is gratitude the same as like loyalty? Because like loyalty is normally in your sort of little book of virtues to be studied in the Western world. You know, little book of virtues. You tend to get more sort of loyalty tends to be right up at the front there, more than gratitude or respect. But loyalty is more to do with just sort of sticking with a person through thick and thin, rather than it concerning any benefit, any particular goodness which you have received at the hands of that person in the past. Okay. So there are degrees of gratitude, just as there are degrees of ingratitude. And I'll tell a little story about each to illustrate my point. The first is a story from the time of the Buddha, and it concerns an aged man who had been sort of neglected by his own children towards the end of his life. And although he had started out quite wealthy, as he became older and his children moved out and he shared his legacy with them, then once they had his legacy, they became less interested in looking after him. And he ended up more or less destitute. So when he became destitute, he thought, well, maybe I can sort of turn up at the temple and become a monk there, and they would look after me instead. And generally the nature of people who are a little bit more senior in years is that if they want to start and retrain themselves to be a monk later in life, then they are usually quite stubborn, and it's hard to change their ways. As they say, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. So it turned out that when the Buddha was looking around for someone to take on this old guy called Radha, to train him up to be a monk, no one was very enthusiastic to do that. You get sort of young monks and like lots of energy, yay, much easier to train up. But the old guys, everyone's a little bit sort of hesitant. So the Buddha called a meeting of all the monks and he asked, is there anyone who has ever received some benefit from this person before? So all the monks are sort of looking the other way. And his right-hand disciple, who we've heard about before, who's called the Venerable Sariputta, he said, I can remember that old man, he once gave me a ladle full of rice into my bowl as I was walking around collecting alms food once in the morning. So the Buddha said, okay, well, it looks like you're going to be the one who should look after this monk because you have a debt of gratitude towards him. So Sariputta didn't complain about that, and he took the monk in, and he even let the monk stay in his accommodation as he was training him up. And it turned out that Radha was not like your average old guy, but he is very quick to learn, very enthusiastic. And when the Buddha asked later, how's your new disciple doing? Then he said he could speak only praise of his student. He said he's very quick to learn and he's very humble and all the other things. So if we're looking at gratitude expressed by Sariputta towards this old guy, you can see that it actually has 3 different qualities to it, which show that it is a gratitude developed to the full, because gratitude comes in 3 degrees. First thing is that he was able to appreciate a favor given to him in the past. Yeah? So, ladle full of rice, he hadn't forgotten his debt of gratitude. That's better than many people who just sort of don't even notice when someone has helped them. The second thing is that not only did he notice and remember how he had been helped by that person, but given the opportunity, he tried to repay the debt of gratitude to that person. So this is not just known as katanyu now, but it's known as katanyu kataweti. So someone who pays back the debt of gratitude that they have received from another person. But there is one step further than that. If gratitude is to be developed to the full, which is that they honor the person who has done something for them in the past. And the way Sariputta honored this particular old monk was that he praised him when given the opportunity to do so. So when he asked about how's he doing, then he said that the monk was doing well. He is a sort of exemplary student. Yeah, he found something good to say about his student. So much better than people who ignore favors, better than people who don't return favors, and people who sometimes even go as far as to deny how they've been helped by other people. Just as you can talk about degrees of gratitude, you can also take the flip side, how ungrateful some people can be as well. So this is like not a comment on anyone in particular, but it just sort of out there in the world there are certain sort of grades of ingratitude as well. So I'll tell the story again. It's a Jataka story about animals who can talk, and it comes from what's known as the Javasakuna Jaataka, Jataka number 308, which is a story about a mountain lion. Yes, a mountain lion and a bird. Yeah. And the mountain lion, he was scoffing his food one day when he got a piece of bone stuck in his throat. And lions are pretty scary at the best of times. And the lion was sort of roaring with pain. So a woodpecker, which was perched nearby, heard the lion's cries and asked, "What is causing you so much trouble?" And the lion said, "A piece of bone has got stuck in my throat." So the woodpecker said, "Well, actually, I could probably help to remove it for you." So the lion said, "Well, hurry up and remove it then. You will be saving my life." But the woodpecker said, "It's not going to be easy." And the lion said, "Well, I don't see what's so difficult about it. Just sort of get in there and get the bone out." And the woodpecker said, "Well, the problem is I don't dare go inside your big mouth with all those big teeth. And I'm afraid you're going to eat me up." And the lion said, "Well, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Just hurry up and save me before I choke to death." But the woodpecker, he had sort of sized up the lion correctly, and he didn't let his guard down. So he got a piece of wood and he propped the lion's jaws open with a piece of wood first of all, and only then did he go down into the lion's throat in order to pull the bone out from the lion's mouth. And only when he was safely clear of the lion's big jaws did he remove the stick propping the lion's mouth open. And shortly the pain in the lion's mouth subsided. And fit and well again, the lion went off to hunt, managed to catch a buffalo and returned to his usual place and was starting to eat his meal. And the woodpecker heard that the lion had been successful in the hunting and dropped a hint to the lion asking, "Aren't you going to spare a few scraps of food for me?" And the lion said, "Be off with you. Think yourself lucky I let you live when you were inside my mouth." So the woodpecker at that point criticized the lion for his selfishness and ingratitude, and then flew off never to return. So if you're talking about ingratitude, the lion is ungrateful, yes, but you can also talk about being ungrateful on 3 different levels. Ingratitude in this case is it didn't even notice when it was having received a favor. Second thing was, given the opportunity to repay the favor, failed to do that. Most people just forget to return the favor, but actually turning down someone is even more ungrateful than that. It's almost like turning a blind eye to favors received. Or some people, they just think they're entitled to receive favors, which is probably even worse. But there's worse than that, which is denying having received help from other people. And for the lion in this particular case, it comes into the last category of basically biting the hand that feeds, because not only did the lion deny having been helped, but even threatened the bird as well. Yeah. So generally, if you're in the States, the time when you're called upon most frequently to talk about gratitude is Thanksgiving Day. I don't think they have that here. But the Thanksgiving story is sort of somewhat of a myth. The nice Devon people who got in their little boat in Plymouth. Possibly not quite as nice as you thought. But the Pilgrim Fathers, 1621, managed to make it all the way over to America. And when they arrived, they were in a pretty bad way. They'd been exposed to cold weather on the way over. They had scurvy, starvation, infectious disease when they first set foot on land. In fact, the only reason they survived at all was that out of the goodness of their hearts, the Native Americans saved them, fed them, looked after them. But instead of thanking or helping those Native Americans, in the picture they're feeding them turkey and stuff, I think that's probably not quite accurate. Actually, what they did was give them blankets which were filled with smallpox, which basically infected all the Native American population, and that wasn't good enough. Instead of thanking the Native Americans who actually brought the turkey in the first place, they took their land. If you heard of the Trail of Tears, it didn't just take land from this particular tribe, which is called the Wampanoag tribe, but they actually worked how they could do the same for all the Native Americans and get them all to live on reserves instead. So actually the irony of the Thanksgiving story, which ought to be about gratitude, is that it ticks all the boxes for ingratitude that we have discussed today. Next time I see you, which will be on Thursday, then I will talk a little bit more about how, if you feel that you are lacking in gratitude on a certain level, you can actually work on that in various ways. So I'll talk more about that next time round. But for today, a few announcements I would like to make are that if you're new to meditation, you feel it may be useful for you, practice makes perfect, and the idea is possibly not just to meditate once and all your problems will go away, but to try to build meditation into your everyday life, perhaps by meditating for perhaps 20 minutes a day, if you can find the time for that, and choosing a time of the day when you will be fairly uninterrupted by other things in your life, or at the time of the day when you feel you have enough energy to sit without getting too tired. And if you sit for 20 minutes a day, then little by little it will start to get deeper into your into the way of focusing your mind. So it'll come more naturally to you as time goes on. Today we did 7 bases of the mind, which meant going down base by base down to the center of the body. But having found the center of your body and being confident about its position, then next time you meditate, you can just relax your body and mind and go directly to the number 7, which would be the best way to practice. Also, if you're hazy about the meditation technique, then you can make use of an application which can be downloaded for free onto your cell phone, which is called MindGem, and it's available on Android or iOS, and it has lots of meditation audio tracks which you can follow along with from all your favorite meditation teachers, as well as some other resources for learning about meditation. The in-person classes here generally happen every Tuesday and Thursday evening, but for this year, the Thursday coming will be the final one for this year, and the classes will restart again on the 10th of January. However, if any of you are free over the New Year period between the 30th of December and the 2nd of January, there will be a sort of little residential retreat going on here, which you can stay over if you wish to, but you might dip in and come during the morning sessions, which would be about 9 o'clock till 11, or the afternoon sessions between 1 and 3 o'clock normally, and there'll be teachings going on and meditations in English for a small group, usually held in the white room up on the mezzanine floor. Things to look forward to in the new year include a visit to us by some of the monks from the International Monastery in Thailand, who will be with us between the 17th and the 24th of January. So you can look forward to some new faces sharing their knowledge with you direct from Thailand. And we'll also mention, if any of you are feeling charitably inclined, there will also be some opportunities in the new year for helping to represent the temple as we go around making a presentation of New Year gift hampers to those who have helped our temple during the year, and also to the York Road Homeless Project and the food bank as well. So if you're interested in helping with any of that, then please mention it to Patrick, and we can go and have your photo with the mayor or whatever, or the fire brigade or the police or whoever else you are particularly attracted to go and thank and show your gratitude for after a whole year of being supported by them.